Patrick, mettila in mezzo Patrick, palla nostra, Suso, tira Alessio, Suso, tira, perché non tiriamo? Ma perché non tiriamo? Gol! Alessio Romagnoli, gol! Alessio Romagnoli! Alessio! Il gol del capitano ancora all'ultimo, come Gilardino!
Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the SempreMilan podcast. I'm your host, Ollie Fisher, back once again. You can find me on Twitter at Ollie Fisher, joined by Anthony Torgrud.
Surprise, I wasn't fired. I'm still here. Happy to be here. Find me on Twitter at Torgrud45. And finally, for the first time in 2 to 3 weeks, we have the whole squad here. Madison's also with us.
Yeah, I'm excited to be back chatting with you guys. And you guys can go ahead and follow me on Twitter at Madison_DT.
You just yelled at us for chatting before starting this.
Yeah, he actually did. Lost his head. Because it's like a good bonding session for us, is this, you know? Chance to get some quality time in, see how each other's weeks have been and stuff like that. But Maddie wasn't up for it. He's grumpy. He needs his sleep.
Really, the entire chatting session is you two just bullying me for 15 minutes before we get started.
I mean, that is correct. Can't really argue with that. We can carry it on in the episode itself if you want, but you know,
I love being publicly humiliated, so let's just keep it going, guys.
All right, this episode is a Maddie roasting session, sponsored by. I can't remember. I was going to say something about when you dropped Bannister from a lineup or something, but I can't remember what that was.
Yeah, and he's now dropped from the lineup. So
yes. That's a good little segue, actually, into the first point. Last night, obviously, we record on Mondays. Last night, San Siro, Sunday night game against Lecce at home. Stefano Pioli's first game in charge. We drew 2-2 against a newly promoted side that was in the bottom three going into the game. AJ, we're still in the banter era, aren't we?
Yeah, it doesn't end. That's just where we're at, man. To be honest, I actually feel bad for Pioli because we deserve to win that game. It was a rookie level penalty giveaway that Conti committed. You know, who goes for a header with their arm completely wide out in the direction you're going to head? That's just not normal. People don't do that. So you know there was a penalty there, and props to Donnarumma. He saved it. Saved 3 of his last 4 penalties he's had to deal with. But he wasn't able to hold on to it, and that's not something you typically do on penalties anyways. You kind of just like get rid of it, so I don't blame him for that. I wouldn't even call it a spill really so much as he just parried it right back to was it Babacar? Who was it?
Yeah, Babacar. He was disappointed with himself though. Like I think he knows that when he gets over to that and he gets 2 hands to it, he needs to tip that the other way, not back across goal. Like I get it, it's a split second thing. You can't always help where the ball rebounds, but I think he knows that he was in a position to push that away, you know, towards the corner.
Too. And the fact that he was disappointed, I mean, obviously we all were because we conceded, but I think he was disappointed more so, like you said, for that deflection than the actual conceded goal itself. And that just shows me the champion level mentality that he has, that any little mistake that he commits, he's going to criticize himself and beat himself up about. Or he just knows that we're a fickle fan base and we will make his life a living hell for a 3rd time if it continues to happen.
Get the ready.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
But yeah, besides that, you know, the rest of the game was pretty good from everyone up until it wasn't, and then you know there was a breakdown from the whole team. Yes, Teo made a bad pass instead of clearing it, which is why Lecce got the ball again. But then there's an article on the site and a video going around of Suso and Conti completely not communicating whatsoever. You know, Conti went into the box, which is what he's supposed to do in that situation. Suso stayed up on the wing, which is where a winger normally is, but not in this situation. And then the midfield was completely stacked on the opposite end because that's where the ball was at the time. So there was a lot going on, and it wasn't so much anyone was doing the wrong thing. It was just so much that they weren't doing the right thing in telling each other what they were doing so that we could actually cover our ground cover bases. And ultimately they scored a worldie, and props to them for it because it was a fantastic shot. It was just...
It was a hell of a strike. I mean,
it was a hell of a goal.
And I was just like Jesus, I cannot believe he scored that. First of all, I was like, it's just our luck that this guy hasn't scored a goal for ages, apparently. I'm not sure exactly how long it is, but he doesn't score very often. And of course, it's a 20, 25-yard rocket past a fully stretched Donnarumma at San Siro to earn a point. I mean, it's just, like I say, it's just our luck at the moment. You kind of touched on it there, AJ. We got a question from @LordDD asking who was most to blame for the late equaliser, Suso, Belia, or Donnarumma. I think personally, there's two players that probably don't belong on that list. I don't think you can fault Donnarumma. It is literally inside side netting, just inside the post. You can't do anything with an absolute howitzer of a shot like that, especially given that he was slightly unsighted as well. There was someone sort of blocking his view. And Belia, I'm not sure. I mean, it was very clear for me that the midfield were told to sit a little bit deeper, especially defending with 3 minutes of injury time left. That's only natural. That's what all teams do. But Belia and the substitute Rade Krunic were sat protecting the centre halves and also dropping even deeper than that when needed, because obviously Lecce were attacking with about 3 or 4 players in the box. For me, Suso and probably Andrea Conti are the ones who you could pin a bit of the blame on, or more of the blame than the other players, because the communication wasn't really there. The video that you were talking about there, AJ, it's on our site. It's a pretty good video in terms of revealing what went wrong. There's about 30, 40 yards between Suso and Conti, and unfortunately that means that Calderoni has seen the opportunity to move a bit forward, and that's why he picks up the ball much closer to the goal than he should. And fair play, it's a hell of a strike. Maddie, what do you think about the performance overall and the late equaliser? Was it avoidable?
I think it was definitely avoidable. I mean, we shouldn't have let them get that shot off. But I mean, those goals get scored like 1 in every 100, so it was an amazing goal nonetheless. Unfortunately, it came in the way of us equalizing and not getting all 3 points. But I think the first half of the game was positive. You could tell that the team came out, looked much more confident. And I don't know what Pioli did, but he made this team want to attack and score goals again. Even Calhanoglu was playing pretty good, I'd say, for how he's looked at the beginning of this season so far. And I think it's just the beginning of how Pioli is going to have us playing. I think that we're going to be more of an attack-minded team, but hopefully we can lock up the defense and not equalize, not concede. I think that our biggest fault so far this year has been giving penalties, stupid penalties. And a little bit last year as well with Musacchio giving up I don't know how many, but it's definitely been the weakness for a while. So hopefully we can lock that up and start to climb the table a little bit starting this weekend with Roma.
One thing that I do want to say about Pioli is, as much trash as I've talked about his appointment before it happened, when it happened, after it happened, and as much as I'm still not a fan of the coach, he did some stuff that was really tactically wise that almost made me shake my head as if, why did no one think of this? It was such a simple switch that made a huge difference. And I'm sure you know what I'm about to get at too, but Kessié and Paqueta switching from left to right and right to left. It was such a simple thing that it's almost like the most obvious thing in the world, like when you misplace your car keys.
Right,
it reminds me of on FIFA when you're like swapping players out and you put them in the wrong order by accident, and then you just like think, stuff it, whatever, I'll play with them there. Yeah, there was method behind it.
And one thing that I've always criticized Kessié about was the fact that he loves to get into the final third. He didn't do that as much anymore. I mean, he still missed a shot, which, whatever, you're going to expect a Kessié miss every single game. But he didn't do it as much because he was on that left side. And the way we had it prior was, obviously, Calhanoglu is the left wing, Paqueta behind him. Those are our 2 creative outlets. And then on the right side, it was one-trick pony Suso and guy who runs forward and backwards, Kessié. So 2 one-dimensional players on the right side, 2 creative players on the left. Now you swap it, and you got 1 of each. And it just evened out. And if you notice, we discussed this last week, Ollie. we were talking about going 4-2-3-1, and that's basically exactly what we did in attack. You see
Yeah.
Kessie stay back with Biglia, and you see Paqueta in the middle. You actually saw Leao on the left quite a bit, also cutting in, and then allowing Hakan. So they were swapping flanks as well, and attacking wise, we looked fantastic, and I was really impressed.
I mean, it having Kessié stay back also let Hernandez move up and
Exactly.
help
Yeah.
Leao.
There was a good report. I mean, when it came out sort of a few hours before the game that Pioli was about to switch Kessié and Paqueta, a few of us were like not really understanding the logic behind it, because obviously Paqueta's left-footed, so he should play on the left side. Kessié is naturally right-footed, so he should be on the right side. However, when you look, it came, I think it was Sky who said it, so you could tell there was an element of credibility about it. Said that it was basically because Theo Hernandez was going to be given a license to push forward, and therefore Kessié was needed to protect that side of the defence, because we'd essentially be defending with three at the back while in possession. And then it allowed Paqueta with the right side a bit more shored up to drift forward and to create. And then Gazzetta dello Sport came out with something earlier today on Monday saying that the way that the team basically functioned was like a 3-2-2-3 when in possession, especially when attacking. And I read that and I was like, that doesn't make any sense. But then when you think about it, it was like Romagnoli, Musacchio and Conte sort of stayed more back. And Conte didn't actually get that far forward. He got forward on a couple of occasions, but Suso didn't really choose to pass to him, and we'll come on to that in a second. Then there was like Biglia and Kessié sat in front, and then Calhanoglu, who was down as a left winger, tucked in more as an attacking midfielder alongside Paqueta. And then you had Hernandez bombing down the left side almost like a left winger, with Rafael Leao operating in the middle, and then Suso on the right side, obviously. So I thought it was a pretty interesting take on it, and I think it just goes to show that everyone was expecting Pioli to play a cut and dry 4-3-3 or a 4-2-3-1. That's not the case at all. I guess we're going to be shape shifting a little bit, and I have confidence, especially after that first half, in which I would describe us as very wasteful. I have confidence that he's going to be able to get this team playing good football and creating chances. What we need is to put those away, and we'll be in a much better position moving forward. I mean, Leao, I love him to bits already. I think he's been one of our sort of few bright spots so far this season, especially in the Gianpaolo mini era that we had. But he wasted a few chances on Sunday night that he will be frustrated not to have scored. And I think it's a case of if he even buries the first one, we're looking at going in at half-time 3 or 4-0 up, because he probably scores the two after that. But he's young, it's going to happen. I think hopefully he comes out and scores a hat-trick at Roma, and all of a sudden everybody's back on the hype train, or whatever you want to call it.
Do you think he's going to start against Roma? Because I feel Piatek will, personally.
I think Piatek is too. I was actually about to ask you guys who you think is going to start, because Piatek scored an open play goal. Leao did not score, but the difference between the two is you have to feed Piatek, where Leao is creating chances for himself and other players to get into open space.
What do you think about
the
playing
team is
together?
creating chances? I don't have any issue with that. I feel like it would be harsh to drop Hakan after his performance this week. But the way I watched Leao play, he tended to be out left a lot. And, maybe that's just still memory from Gianpaolo playing him as a left winger, but I don't have an issue with that. And, I think that would kind of be a good way to quell some of the fans who are pretty irritated with seeing Calhanoglu playing. Maybe have Hakan out there. We're also going to have Bonaventura returning soon, so who knows? But I'm not against it. Maybe left wing is where he needs to be, but I thought he looked great down the middle, but he tended to go left.
I think for what it's worth, Pioli's probably going to have his hand forced, because he said that Leao came off with a bit of a muscle problem, and I read something earlier today saying he's actually in doubt for the Roma game. So it'd be interesting to see what the extent of that is, and whether he in fact makes it, or if even there's a slight risk of aggravating it during the game, it makes it an easy decision to start Piatek over him. But if he's fully fit, then
I just really hope that this goal for Piatek just opens up the floodgates. Because that was a very classic Piatek goal where he just taps it in, goes around the goalie. All season he's had those chances, but has just screwed him up tremendously. And so I hope Pioli's confidence in him will help transition. I don't know what was going on under Gianpaolo, but this team looked absolutely horrible.
It is really weird because Gianpaolo said multiple times about Piatek that he thought he had the ability to become a complete striker and to drop a bit deeper and contribute to the play, all around.
Right.
But then Pioli's come in, and we know that he likes his number nines to function as penalty box strikers. We've seen it with Icardi, we saw it with Giovanni Simeone, we've seen it with Klose at Lazio. All those players have operated as out and out number nines under Pioli, and it was a bit different with him starting with Leao, because obviously Leao was going to drift into space and stretch Lecce's line, and that did happen, and I thought his movement was really good. But then to bring someone like Piatek off the bench, and funnily enough, we've criticised him for not contributing to the overall play so far this season, but he's told to operate in and around the area, and he caused absolute havoc when he came on. We kind of saw it when he came off the bench against Brescia, and he had a couple of chances to kill the game late on, but didn't manage to get his goal. He must have thought he scored the winner against Lecce, to be fair, scoring with less than 10 minutes left. Yeah, and I think I would have been more confident about him moving forward had that been the winner. I think it would have just done absolute wonders for him. It's a bit of a knock that it didn't prove to be the winner, but yeah, I really hope that is what it needed, a goal from open play to kind of remind him to believe in himself and know that he's got a massive, massive role to play in this team. And
I can't remember who it was, but one of the big name reporters in Italy said prior to the game that if Piatek were to come on and score, because it was after the lineups were announced, said if Piatek were to come on and score, that he firmly believed that Piatek would score in 20 consecutive games. Now, I don't believe that.
20?
But I would love to see. Oh, yeah, it's a ridiculous number. But I can't remember who it was. I'll have to look it up on Twitter when we're done here and figure it out. But, I hope he's right.
Yeah, me too. I mean, we've talked before about the idea of benching Piatek and bringing him on when we're in need of a goal, and that perhaps being the catalyst needed, because A, it's a reminder that his position in the lineup isn't untouchable, and B, it's sort of that coming off the bench with more energy. He said before to Gianpaolo about how Piatek feels fatigue more than the other players, and if he's not going to be able to play every game for 90 minutes, then sometimes using him in the right situations wisely off the bench, we're going to see contributions like we saw on Sunday night. And he was set up by Calderoni, who had a goal and an assist. We got a question from Mo Alfaran asking, is this the Hakan that we were promised since 3 years ago? I assume he means 2 years ago when we signed him, but yeah. Or is it a one-off match?
I think, this would be his third season, so I I think that first season we had him, he was on fire. Remember, there was a spell of like 10, 15 games where he was scoring in all of them or something like that. Some ridiculous amount. Granted, it was, cup matches and Europa League and Serie A, so it was never anything consistent throughout one competition. But he was doing fantastic for a while, and that was what we expected. I think, funny enough, the reason we signed him was not for creativity or goal scoring, but so much for the free kicks. He was scoring free kicks from 40 yards deep with his eyes closed in the Bundesliga. We've yet to have a free kick goal from him, I believe. We may have one from that first season. I don't remember, but
I think he scored one. I think Ricardo Rodriguez is the one who hasn't scored one yet.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, he got that one. Calhanoglu's free kick wasn't even that. I think was it the one where I think it was against Fiorentina anyway. But yeah, sorry, go on.
No, that was just kind of the point that I think that's the part that we're still missing from him. And I know a lot of people have been mad on him, and I have criticized him as well, but I don't think he's been as terrible as everyone's saying. Before this, he scored our first goal, earned the first penalty. So, all of our points that we had up until things went real south there were because of him. So I don't think he's been terrible. I think he's been bad. But yesterday was a fantastic performance, and I hope he continues with it.
Yeah, he was really good. He was really good. Man of the match for us, definitely. I think. Yeah, I found it interesting because when it said that he would be out wide left when the starting 11 came out, I thought, I really don't like the idea of Hakan as a winger at all. He doesn't have the pace to really beat the man. All that he's potentially got is a good delivery on him, and when we haven't seen that from set pieces, you wondered if that's buried too far deep down now to really bring it out. But I don't know. I really hope it's the start of a revival for him, but I'm not counting my chickens just yet because we need to see that kind of performance week in, week out. If he's given the license to get forward and to get in behind and to be dangerous, basically, to be the provider that we hope that he can be, then I'm sure that we'll see an improvement in his performances at the very least. But we can't expect him to be dropping, 8 out of 10 performances every week because I just don't think it's realistic.
And he never was an 8 out of 10 every week player in the Bundesliga either. I mean, obviously, highlight reels can make anyone look like they're Messi every day of the week, but it wasn't that he was inconsistent. He just wasn't consistently great. He was good and then great on occasion. So I'm not too worried about it. Kind of going back to you mentioned Leao and Piatek starting at the same time. I don't think we're going to see that simply because we don't have a third striker, so we wouldn't have anyone to back up Piatek at that point unless we did some weird shifting, which is actually very possible and likely. So never mind. I was going to say I think we'll see Hakan start, but maybe not. Who knows?
Yeah, we seem a bit unpredictable at the moment, and that is possibly a good thing, especially when it keeps the opponents guessing. We got a question from Daniel Ahmed asking, who do you prefer in the trequartista role in a 4-2-3-1, Hakan or Paqueta? And I mean, we've touched a little bit on how we basically lined up on paper and how it was different during the actual match itself. But I would honestly say, based on that game, especially based on the first 60 minutes against Lecce, I would like them both to stay where they are, probably, because like I say, Hakan ended up tucking in a bit more and playing that playmaker role. Paqueta ended up pushing up and basically being alongside him. And honestly, we looked threatening with them two playing together in the same starting 11. I don't know what
they had good build-up play between each other as well. In the beginning, I thought Paqueta was going to score. I can't remember. I want to say it was like the 7th minute, but Leao went up and he took a shot. The keeper saved it, and Paqueta was right there and almost scored the follow-up. I can't remember.
Yeah, that was when he tried to clear it, the defender, and he hit it straight against Paqueta, and it rebounded just over.
I think that was like the first 5 minutes of the game, right?
Something like that, yeah. It was early.
Yeah, I think it was... I want to say the 2nd minute or something. It was really early. We had 2 chances inside the first, 2-3 minutes. And Leao, that was the one where I'm thinking because he opened his body up to put it across goal, and it's Gabriel who was in net for Lecce, who of course is ex-Milan. But it was an easy-ish save for him, and that's the one where I think Leao should have gone with power at the near post, because Gabriel was expecting that ball to go back across him, and he went down for it easy enough. Yeah, he parried it, but it was eventually cleared. But yeah, I think if Leao scores that goal, he probably goes on to score 2 or 3 because his confidence is sky high at that point. But yeah, Hakan or Paqueta, for now, why not both? That's what I'd say. But it depends what Pioli wants to do, because obviously we've got some interesting dynamics in this team at the moment, like the idea of shifting Leao out to the wing and starting Piatek again, or will Ante Rebic get some space? Suso, who we'll come on to in a second, is he deserving of a place at this point? Yeah, not really sure, but
if I had to choose one, I'd choose Paqueta
to play.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I just see them as different players, and from what we saw in the good bits of that game, they can offer different things, but alongside each other. But yeah, I think Paqueta is definitely one who you need to be looking at as the proper Metzala, as the like kind of box to box midfielder. I think he's definitely suited to that role. Yeah. Anyway, we got a question from Michael Shulansky, and obviously this is a pretty pretty raw topic at the moment. He says, like everyone else, want your take on Suso. There are positive stats to counter his negatives. Actually thought he had a decent game against Lecce. And then Surf King Basic also asks, despite bad stats so far, Suso did manage to create about 3 or 4 goal scoring opportunities, including the perfect through ball to Leao that he put wide. So Suso outtrended in Italy on Twitter today. And I think it's another, before I throw it to you guys, I think it's another example of I honestly try not to swear. Basically, our childish fan base once again jumping on probably the wrong players back. Suso hasn't been great this season in terms of productivity. We know that he's still got an important part to play in the way that the team functions, and you know everything from an attacking point of view seems to still go through him, although it didn't as much against Lecce. Yes, he's only got 1 assist so far. He should have had another one with that through ball that he mentions there. And honestly, this was his first game being shifted. Lineup wise, it wasn't, but it was his first game being properly shifted out to being wide right in a 4-3-3 formation, where he wasn't essentially doubling up as a trequartista. He's going to take a little bit of time to get back to his best form. And if anyone's going to bring that out of him, we've got to hope that it's Pioli. And we've seen enough signs from the opening 45 minutes to suggest that all the attacking players could potentially thrive under this kind of football. So how does our fan base respond? By literally trending #Suso out. Mini rant there, but I just think it was pretty appalling, to be honest.
No, I mean, you're totally right. I don't think his time is up at the club. I think that typically he either is terrible at the beginning of the season and great at the end, or vice versa. And so hopefully this is what we're going to see. Hopefully he turns it around. And I definitely agree with that last part there. With Pioli coming in, we've definitely seen a turnaround in a lot of the players. And to be honest, no one has been great this season, minus our goalkeepers who have faced, I believe, every penalty that we've faced. I think Donnarumma saved 3 and Reina saved 1. So, that's a pretty amazing stat in itself. Rest of the 10 have not been very good whatsoever. Maybe bright light being Leao in the last league game. But, to put it all on Suso's back, fans have very high expectations of him. He's been a very wishy-washy player, and when he's doing great, he's fantastic, and when he's doing bad, he is absolutely horrible. So it's like he's either hot or cold. There's no warm. So hopefully we can get him to be more sustainable.
I'm going to actually challenge that and say this game was a prime example of him being warm instead of hot or cold, because he had a good game. It was just the lack of focus at the end, the lack of communication between him and Conte that led to the second goal. In my opinion, had we have been completely shut out this game, destroyed, looked like we looked against every other team we played this season, this hashtag never would have happened. This was purely a reaction from a petulant fan base that was hurt emotionally because they thought we were winning and then conceded in stoppage time. And we all were hurt, we all were upset, so I get it, but it's the wrong thing to do. And it only started because the Pioli out one was so successful. And that's a completely different thing, because that's trying to avoid someone coming into the club that you don't want. Once he's here, let it be. But we can't do a Suso out when Suso is not our problem. Regardless of what everyone wants to say on Twitter, Suso is not the sole issue of our team. Neither is Hakan, neither is Biglia, neither is Theo. There's so many people that get singled out as a scapegoat for that particular game, that particular reason, and then someone who says that will ride that agenda the rest of the season, and it's ridiculous. And we all make some agendas in jest, like my Cutrone one was not really. It was just because I wanted Andre Silva. I think they're both great players. Doesn't matter. But the people that are actually upset and blaming them, you're out of your mind. You need to calm down. Now, what was the actual question? I don't remember.
Well, the actual question was about really, his place in the starting lineup,
Oh, it's
I
there. It'll
guess.
never be challenged because we don't have any right wing that. Well, we don't even have a right. I mean, we have Castillejo, who let's not pretend. I mean, if you want to start an out hashtag, that's the guy because his performance has been the worst. I mean,
Oh no,
but I don't even
you've started something here.
right.
That's gonna happen.
But another thing we got to look at is every game prior to Lecce, we cannot count towards the rest of the season because it's a different coach. Like you said, a mini era under Giampaolo. It's over. That's done. We look like a totally different team, new formation, fluidity moving forward and in defense. So
Same shit
this is
with.
our day one. This is our day one. Even though it's like you said, a new or the same result, it's still a completely different feel. We're
Yeah.
not going into this one upset, feeling defeated. It's just we're a bit heartbroken, but we're all positive with what we saw. So it's a completely different mentality than it was when we were heading into Fiorentina saying we're going to get completely destroyed by this team because we're trash. It's totally different.
Mm.
We feel like we can win. We're going into one of the toughest spells of our season, playing Roma, Spal, Lazio, Juve, and Napoli, and yet even though we're coming off of a draw and coming off of this 7 game horrendous run prior to that, people are saying, "I bet we could beat Roma." Had Roma been
Mm.
today, or had Roma been yesterday instead of Lecce, not a soul would have said we were beating them. But people think we can now, so that speaks volumes, and I think people need to realize that. Anyways,
Yeah,
my rant.
yeah, man, it's good rant. Just to close on the Suso thing as well, I think he's been the victim of, and it feeds into the frenzy that we've seen today. For example, the trending hashtag and stuff. But he's been the victim particularly over the international break when the newspapers are bored. We know they're bored. I won't say they make stuff up, but certainly the reports are a lot more sensationalized. And one of the things that kept coming up was about Suso's potential contract renewal. And a lot of the different outlets seem to agree that he wanted a substantial pay rise in order to renew his contract with us. And I don't think that's helped his cause either. That's not the right time for those kind of things to come out, whether true or not, while he's having, arguably his worst form in a Milan shirt. But I'm sticking by him. I think every player needs to be given a fresh start under Pioli. We have to trust that Suso be moved back to his more natural position, wide right, will make him feel more comfortable. He's going to work better with his teammates who are alongside him than they were under Giampaolo's system, where they all looked lost. And ultimately, we've just got to trust that moving forward, he is our guy, because he's given us a reason throughout the first 8 games also to be sceptical, but certainly not to completely write him off. And as you say, there isn't really an alternative at the moment. You're not going to go with Castillejo because he's a completely different player, really. He's much more direct. And this idea of switching Rebic over to being on the right side, for me, I just don't think you need to do that at the moment. So, yeah, I think Suso's got time to get things right, and I really think he will. There's a player in there somewhere. It's a shame in a way that it feels like we have so many players who are confidence players, like they need a goal or an assist, and then we can start to see what they're really worth. But yeah.
Is Rebic one of those confidence players? Because my personal opinion, he looked bad when he came on, and everyone else looked re-energized under a new coach, even the other subs and people that struggled. So I don't know. I was interested to see how he'd look, and I thought he looked poor. So do you think he needs some sort of confidence, or do you think it's still just growing pains adapting to 2 new coaches in 8 weeks?
I feel a bit sorry for Rebic, to be honest, because I think there were times under Giampaolo where it was screaming out for him to start again, for us to start someone who's known for being a match winner. And what have we had? He's racked up so far 73 minutes in Serie A. Like that's not enough. That's not what the plan was.
The Frankfurt manager already talked about it too. Did you see that?
Yeah,
No, what
he
he
took a gamble and he's lost or something.
Yeah, he said he's already lost his Milan gamble, which I think is a ludicrous statement.
It wasn't. It was a board member, I think. So it wasn't as I suppose they're allowed to be a little bit more outspoken than directors or whatever. But yeah, stupid, childish thing to say, really. I really hope that he's read that and now he's absolutely determined to score 5 goals in 5 games or something. I want to see more of Rebic. I really do. I think he's a serious player.
I mean, he has the potential to be great, and I think that it's definitely just acclimating to a new league and then 2 new managers and just a complete state of the club. Right now, it's got to be hard for him to come in and really prove himself. But hopefully he can, and he can score some amazing goals for us.
Yeah, and we know he could be a great player. We saw it in the World Cup. He was incredible, one of the best of the tournament.
Well, that was the thing as well. I watched him against Wales over the international break. I think it was on the Sunday or something. He came off the bench there as well, having started the game before for Croatia. He came off the bench there for like the last 25 minutes. He changed the game. He looked really, really good. He came on the left, but ended up just moving across the forward line and getting in behind and causing all kinds of problems. I think that is exactly the kind of player you want to throw on with 30 minutes left or 25 minutes left when we needed a goal again, because they'd equalised with the penalty. You think that's the go-to guy. I thought the substitutions were a little bit strange bringing Krunic on, but I thought he looked all right, actually. But yeah, I don't know. If I was Rebic, I'd be feeling pretty frustrated at the moment. But, especially when Calhanoglu started I keep saying on the left-hand side, but when he started on the left over Rebic, he must have been like, what have I got to do to get a game here? But we saw the way that it worked tactically, and it was perhaps a little bit different to how the starting lineup appeared. So we'll see how that goes moving forward. But we've got a game coming up against Roma this weekend, and it's the start of a really, really, I think it'd be fair to say, a tough stretch of games. What have we got? We've got Roma away, Spal at home, Lazio at home, Juve away, Napoli at home. I mean, this is a really, really tough stretch of games. But yeah, it starts with Roma at the Olimpico on Sunday. And managed to speak to a good friend of mine, Sam Bannister, who is of Roma Yorkshire fan club. And he also writes for AS Roma's women's page. He's a columnist for them. He also writes for Team Talk and Football 365. I managed to speak to him to get a bit of insight on the game from the opposition's point of view. So I'm joined by Roma fan Sam Bannister of Giallorossi Yorkshire and the AS Roma English official site. Sam, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so kind of contrasting starts to the season, but at the same time, I'm guessing you'll be a little bit optimistic than what we are at the moment going into this. But just for a little bit of background knowledge for perhaps some of our listeners who aren't too familiar with what Roma have done over the summer, because it's been a little bit of an overhaul for you guys as well. Starting with manager Paulo Fonseca, what were your first thoughts when he was linked and then when he joined the club?
Well, I think he's a good manager. Obviously, wasn't the first choice. We were linked with Antonio Conte, which obviously didn't work out. Probably a bit too ambitious. So, obviously, there were names that were bigger than Fonseca that could have come. And he's not managed in Italy before. But once you looked at his track record and what he'd done at Shakhtar, he spent 3 years there and won the League and Cup double in each of those. You see that he is a promising young coach, and maybe it is time for him to test himself in a league like Serie A. And yeah, as some fans might think that there were better names that we could have got, but I think he's the right fit for the club. It's a new project almost. We keep saying the same things over and over again sometimes, that it's a new start, but I think he's the perfect man to come into this post-De Rossi era and everything else and try and test himself in this league and prove that he is as good as what he's shown in Ukraine, see if he can match that in a more competitive league. And yeah, I think he's a good manager, and I think he will do well.
Yeah, I must admit, when I saw it, myself, I was quite impressed with it. I thought it was a shrewd appointment because obviously he's one of the names he wasn't in a top 5 league before, as you say. He'd been with been with Shakhtar, and he'd done a really, really good job with them. He won pretty much everything that there was to be won, and he'd done it playing a good style of football. I thought it was a good appointment for you guys. I did feel like there was definitely some parallels between Milan and Roma throughout the summer in terms of the names that we were linked with for managers and for certain players as well. It kind of didn't work out for us from a managerial point of view, but for you guys, not too bad so far. And what did you think about the signings that you made in the summer? Obviously, the main ones being Spinazzola coming in at fullback, Diawara arriving from Napoli. You got Mkhitaryan and Smalling in on loan, Mancini, who Milan were linked with. What were your thoughts on the business overall? Did you fill a few holes that needed fixing?
Yeah, I think, again, the reaction was quite mixed from most of the fans, but I see the positive sides in it because I think most of the names that have come in, even though they may not be all world-class players, I think a lot of them have improved on what we had last season. So a player like Spinazzola at fullback, he brings versatility. He can play left-back or right-back. He's mainly had to do right-back so far because Kolarov's been doing well on the left-hand side. But I think it's really important to have a player like that who can offer different dimensions and also to provide competition to a player like Kolarov who's ageing. So I think he was an impressive addition, even though a lot of money was spent on him. The likes of Diawara, unfortunately, he's picked up an injury. He's going to miss a couple of months now. But I think he brings something else to the midfield that we didn't already have. And along with him, another player that I believe was linked quite strongly with Milan in Jordan Veretout. Mm-hmm. Who's also come in, and I think his passing ability is going to stand out, certainly over the next couple of weeks now, because he's our only fit central midfielder now because of all the injuries. So I think it's important to see the qualities that they're going to bring. The likes of Mkhitaryan has obviously had a difficult time in the Premier League, so if we'd have signed him 3 years ago, this would have been a really impressive addition. Coming now, there's a little bit of uncertainty about him, but he seems to have started okay. Again, just got a little bit of a disruption with an injury, but I think he will show his quality. I think he'll link up well with Dzeko, and that's going to be really important. And then, the last one of the big names really would be Chris Smalling, who, again, a bit like the managerial situation, probably not the biggest name that was linked or the one to get fans excited, but in what he's been doing so far, he's been really good. In most of the games he's played, he's been a clear candidate for man of the match. He's just looking strong, he's reading the game well, and it's not always easy to make that transition, but I think he's settling in well, and then he's got Mancini alongside him, who's still young, still got a lot to learn, but I think if they can form a partnership, then that's a really important area of the pitch that's been quite a problem for Roma over the past few seasons, and I think he can add something, both of them together can solidify that for us.
Yeah, I mean, looking from an outsider's point of view, I thought there was again some pretty smart recruitment from Roma this summer. Quite like some of the names that you brought in, and as you say, there were a couple of them that we were linked to. In Mancini, in particular, I really wanted us to sign because I thought he was impressive for Atalanta, and I actually wouldn't have minded Veretout because we had 3 midfielders leave at the end of their contract in June, and I thought we needed a little bit more depth than what we've got at the moment, but missed out on both of those and ended up going for the targets. So you're on 13 points after 8 games. Some good results in there, some bad ones. What would your overall grade be on the season so far? Are some of these signings beginning to gel? Are you seeing the same problems still, or what's your overall thought on Fonseca's reign so far?
I think it's still early days and it's hard to say which way it's going to go, but I think it's been a positive start, all things considered. A lot of injuries again, which is a common theme, that maybe more injuries than the norm, maybe there's something wrong there. But in terms of the actual football that's being played with what's available, I think we've seen a clear contrast in the style of play. We seem to be keeping possession of the ball better. And the attackers seem to be linking up quite well, more so at the start of the season than recently. Maybe that's to do with the players not being available and having different lineups. But I think overall, it looks quite positive. I think Fonseca is showing that he's up to the the pressure that comes with managing a club as big as Roma, where the expectations are high and it's hard for many managers to deliver to those expectations. I think new signings still taking some time to gel, but most are starting to settle in, like Smalling, who's doing well. Veretout will have his chance over the next couple of months to really stamp his authority. And yeah, I think overall, if I was to rate the start of the season out of 10, I would give it a solid 7. I think there's still some areas that need to be improved. Still, again, sometimes the possession's good, sometimes it's not so good. But I think overall, it's been positive. And once the players that are injured come back, we've got Diego Perotti, who's just returning from his injury. Mkhitaryan won't be out for too much longer. And once all these players come back, I think everything will start to click. And I think that we could have a positive season, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, 7 out of 10 is a few points higher than I could certainly give our start to the season. So at least you've had a few more positives in that respect. But yeah, I mean, I'm just looking here at your results. I mean, the only defeat in Serie A coming at home to Atalanta, and they're obviously a pretty impressive side away from home. So there's a couple of things there that are to be expected. A few growing pains, perhaps, and as you say, you've had problems with injuries as well. So over the coming weeks, that should probably iron out. Would you be able to pick one standout performer for you so far this season? One player who's been head and shoulders above the rest?
So obviously I've mentioned Smalling, but I'm actually going to shift the focus to someone else who's been equally impressive, and that's Edin Dzeko. Someone that there was a lot of pressure, a lot of uncertainty about his future in the summer. We thought he was going to go to Inter. He ended up signing the contract extension, and since then he's just looked back to his really strong self. We know that quality-wise, he is the best player in the squad. Last season, not everything went his way. He had a difficult time. But this season, he's started really well. He's got some important goals, and his goals have always been really important for us. We don't really have many other sources of regular goals that are guaranteed, certainly after selling El Shaarawy in the summer. So now Dzeko's really stepping up to that responsibility, and I think that when he's fully fit, he can always be a difference maker. And we even saw on Sunday against... Who did we play?
Sampdoria, wasn't it?
Yeah. Busy weekend. When we played Sampdoria
game as well, wasn't it, by the sounds of it? But
when he came on, he had to wear the mask because he fractured his jaw before the international break.
Yeah, the Batman mask.
Yeah, and even playing at 70% of his fitness, he did make a difference. Tried to make things happen. Difficult game, but even then, he's showing the quality that he has and his leadership. So I think I've been really impressed with Dzeko more than most.
Yeah, I'm a huge Edin Dzeko fan. I've mentioned a few times on this podcast before that he's someone that Milan, if there was any potential opening for a deal, or if there was any player that we could perhaps throw money at who is a proven goal scorer in this league, someone who's perfect centre forward, who's good in a 4-3-3 formation, could play in a 4-2-3-1, whatever, then he's who we should be looking at. But I like to see him banging in the goals, and thankfully it's for you and not Inter. That's one thing I will say. He's up there, 4 goals. He's up there with some of the top scorers in the league. Obviously, he's tied with Ronaldo, one behind Belotti and Lukaku, and Luis Muriel, who I didn't realise was playing as well as he is. He's averaging 49 minutes per goal at the moment. But Dzeko, solid goal scorer and a very good number 9. From somebody who's obviously an outsider looking in at us, how would you sum up? How do Milan look from the outside? Are you looking at us as a circus and sort of thinking, that we could be a lower mid-table team this season, or is it very much a case of other teams are expecting us to shoot up the league?
I think no two ways about it. The start of the season's been a mess, but I think there is still a lot of time for you to recover. Obviously, you've made the managerial change really early, and the reaction's been mixed, but I think...
Very mixed, yeah. Say that again.
Yeah, I think if he's up to the task, then if he's given enough time to turn it around, then Pioli could maybe get you back into the top half. I wouldn't expect you to finish below the top 10. I know it's been a really rough start, but there is enough quality in the squad. But I do think it will be tough to get the top 6. It will require a big turnaround, but if you can get Piatek firing again, he scored at the weekend, then that's one big hurdle out of the way. And if you get the system that suits all the players, I know that Marco Giampaolo had difficulty implementing the system that he wanted to play. But if you can find one that works for Pioli and works for the players, then all of a sudden things will start to gel. Whether you'll be able to challenge for Europe or not, I think you will, but it will be a tough hurdle, really tough obstacle to overcome. It's a difficult situation. It's a transitional year. So
I think the problem is that Milan fans don't tend to do transitional years very well. It's a very expectant fan base, and we've seen it took just 7 games for somebody who wasn't getting their ideas across to get the axe. But yeah, I'm in agreement with you. I mean, I've said over the last couple of weeks on this podcast that my fear is not about us missing out on top 4 or not being in the Europa League spots. My fear is genuinely us finishing somewhere between 8th and 12th. And when you look at the fact that we're in 12th at the moment, it's easy to see why the warning signs are there for some fans, especially when we can't beat Lecce at home despite a really good performance, which it was. But interestingly, at the same time, we go into Sunday's game knowing that if we manage to somehow beat you at the Olimpico, we'll go above you. So that's there's still tangible improvements that we can make in terms of going the right way up the table. How do you see Sunday's game playing out? I mean, the games between us two are notoriously hard to call. I remember pretty much every time that we've been to the Olimpico, I've been convinced that we're going to lose. And then, there was that game under Gattuso when we were on an absolute roll and we won 2-0, and that was one of our best performances under him.
And one of our worst that season.
Yeah, definitely got that impression. Do you think this will be a tight one? Do you think it's one of those where both teams don't really want to risk too much this early in the season?
Yeah, probably. I think it's a big opportunity for you with all the injuries that we've got. But equally, with the way that you've started the season, I think we should be expecting to win, certainly at home. So I think it'll be a cagey game. Both teams have had their problems. Yeah, I think it's going to be really tight. I don't want to sit on the fence, but it is really hard to call because, as we know, these are two clubs in fairly similar situations, going through years with new coaches and new players. A lot of expectations on both teams that maybe struggle to live up to sometimes. In terms of the game itself, I think I can only see it being a draw. I don't want to sit on the fence, but I think it's going to be really tight because there's just a lot at stake for both teams.
Yeah, I get a lot of flack for constantly predicting draws when we're away from home on here, but I can't see it going any other way myself, especially given that we're struggling to pick up points away from home, and obviously going to a tough place like the Olimpico, I'd probably take a point at this point. And just finally, I'll push you for a score prediction, just so if you get it wrong, we get to publicly roast you for it.
Oh, too right. I'll go for 2-2. I think there'll be goals in the game. We'll have another 2-2.
Yeah, 2-2. We got. I mean, obviously we drew 2-2 last night, and I'm flabbergasted still that we managed to concede 2 to Lecce, but I guess what it does show is that when we play this full-on 100-mile-an-hour football, there are ways that we can be picked apart at the other end. So I think Pioli will be wary about that going into the game, but I'll agree with you and go for a 1-1 draw. Nice one. Thank you very much for joining me, Sam. And
Thank you for having me.
Say best of luck for Sunday, but I wouldn't really mean it. But yeah, fingers crossed we see a good game.
Yeah, let's hope so. Thank you.
So yeah, thank you very much to Sam for that. I wouldn't mind a 2-2 draw, to be fair. I think that's a pretty solid prediction from him on that. AJ, how do you see this game going?
Sorry, I just heard someone inhale deeply there. Was that you?
I thought I was on mute. I was yawning.
Lovely. Yeah, so Madison's falling asleep while we record. That's great. Yeah, no, I could see a draw. I think a draw is possible. I think any result is possible. We've beaten Roma last season, and I believe the season prior as well. Obviously, we're not in the best of form, but we just got this new second win. So it'll be interesting to see how we bounce back after having that new coach mentality. We mentioned this. There's the magic of a new manager and players tend to perform better in that first game. So bouncing back from a disappointing draw, it'll be interesting to see if we carry that momentum into this Roma game or if we completely crumble. And for that reason, I think 2-2 is very likely, and I think 2-0 for both teams is likely. So it'll be interesting. I'll obviously be watching. I know you will too. So we'll see what happens.
Hot take from Anthony: any result is possible.
Good
Yes.
that hedging his bets. I mean, normally he goes balls on the line, and he's
I
like,
know.
"Oh, we're gonna lose 3-0 at home to Fiorentina," and he nearly got that right. To be fair,
I bet on Leicester to win the league the year before they won the league, so that's a joke.
wow, fair play.
Unlucky. Hey, bet on Milan to win the league this year. Maybe we'll win next year.
Honestly, not a bad idea.
Yeah, but I mean, gamble responsibly, kids. Like, don't lose money like that. Maddie, they've got a few injuries, as Sam mentioned there.
Yeah.
Do you think this is a decent opportunity for us to go and, remind everyone what we're capable of?
Yeah, I definitely think it is. I think that, like you said, we have a second wind here. And I believe we've won quite a bit of the head-to-heads the past, 2 seasons. It looks like we've won the last 2 games. We drew 1 and then won the 2 before that. So we have past on our side. But, I mean, recently they've been a pretty good team. Only the past year or so, they've started to sell their players and dip down a little bit. And I don't think that they've been as dominant this year as they have in the past. So I think that we can definitely take advantage of that and hopefully get all 3 points. I would label this game almost as a must-win after the beginning of the season that we've had because we're 3 points behind them and we can't afford to lose this game and drop even farther out of the top 6.
Yeah, it really is a 6-point game, honestly.
Yeah, it is. It is. But this is the thing: is that there's definitely a negative narrative surrounding the club at the moment in terms of where we are in the league, and that's understandable. After 8 games, we're in 12th place. But if we win, because it obviously goes on head-to-head and not goal difference, we'd actually go above Roma. So everything's been said about how Fonseca's having a good start to the season with Roma, which he is. They're in 6th. They keep in touch with those top 4 spots, which I thought was always going to be quite difficult for them, just as it is for Lazio when there's some good teams to compete against. Let's put it that way. And Roma, like us, have had a bit of a mini overhaul in terms of the players that they've brought in, new manager, that kind of thing. So they're doing okay to be there or thereabouts at this stage of the season. But yeah, I think back to my favourite game under Gattuso's time in charge when we won there 2-0. Cotrone scored with that back heel, and then Calabria scored when he went through on goal.
Cheeky chip.
Oh, and that was amazing. And I don't know. It feels like another result like that, if we could somehow get it on Sunday, would be absolutely massive for us.
Be huge.
As in terms of a turning point in the season, like I said, to win, if we could win playing well, to go above them in the league, and all of a sudden be back in the top half, as you'd assume, the whole narrative would change surrounding the club. So we just got to be massively hopeful.
Is the Lazio game also away? Is it also?
No, we're at home.
We're at home.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say we could go into Rome and conquer Rome in one day again, like we did last. Or was it 2 seasons ago we did that?
I think it was last season.
2 seasons.
Was it? Was it Coppa Italia and
we won that Roma, and then we won on pens in the Coppa, didn't we, against Lazio? Yeah.
We have Roma away, then Lazio and Spal at home, then Juve away, I believe, or Napoli away.
No, Juve's an away game. I remember looking at that and saying we've lost this game already.
Yeah.
Watch us win this game.
Okay.
Well, I was going to ask you actually, as a follow-up question to both of you, how many points do you think we're going to take out of this next 5? Because we've been looking at it as like the death run in terms of fixtures. How many points?
I just put it in our group chat earlier. 2. I think we're gonna draw with Roma, and I just feel a draw with Spal, and that's probably just pessimism. Even though I just said we need to not be pessimistic and ignore the opening run of fixtures. I am. And so 2 out of the 15.
Genuinely 2 points.
You seriously think we're only going to get 2 points?
I don't
That
think
is
I don't think we stand a chance against Juve or Napoli. There's no way. Spal we could probably beat, so 4 points, but I think that's it.
relegation form.
What do you think we've
I
been in?
Yeah, I really hope you're wrong, but I see what you mean. I mean, the results to this point haven't been good. We just got to hope that the teams turned the corner and we're now going to be competitive against these teams. I mean, yeah, Juve away is generally a write-off. Napoli at home is going to be very, very hard against a squad that's much better than ours. I'm a little bit more optimistic. I think we beat one of Roma or Lazio. I'm not sure. And I think we beat Spal at home. And I think we take a point. I don't know. I'm going to say 7 points in whatever form they come. 7 points out of 15 to win two and take a draw and probably lose. Yeah, and lose a couple.
I actually forgot Lazio in mine, so throw in one extra point. Maybe 3. Yeah, throw one extra.
Oh my God. I think we are going to get all 3 against Spal. I think that we are going to get 3 against Lazio. I think we're going to get 1 against Roma. And 1 point against either Juve or Napoli.
Ooh, it's quite optimistic.
We have to be, man. We're in such shit form. We got to be positive.
Again, I think so much of it we'd be able to change this, in a week's time. But so much of it comes down to what happens in Rome. If we regress again and lose comfortably, like we very well could, then everything's going to be negative again. If we go there and get out what you call positive results, so either a win or like a draw where we come from behind and show some fighting spirit or something, it's going to be very much like, oh, Pioli's actually changed the mentality of this team. So, yeah, we'll see how it goes. But I just hope that we see the kind of football that we saw in the first half against Lecce, some proper free-flowing stuff, and we don't revert back to the kind of setting up negatively away from home. Yeah, let's go to some reader questions then. So, Daniel at Leao Season asks, which areas of the pitch do you think we need to reinforce in January? If anything, do you have any specific players you'd like to see brought in, such as Rakitic or Mandzukic that we've been linked with?
Well,
fire away.
So our right back situation has not been pretty hot this season. We've alternated Calabria and Conti not because we can't decide who's better, but because they each get a red card every game, and that's not good. And with Conti giving away that really bad penalty, I mean, ultimately, if that didn't happen, who knows if their second goal ever happens? One of those things, mentality shift, momentum, blah, blah, blah. So I think he's not doing too well. And if Calabria can't regain last season's form, then in January, that's a position we might want to consider looking into. And it's something I was thinking about. And I genuinely can't think of a right back that is available or realistic for us to get. So any suggestions, I'm open to hearing them. And I don't know about other positions. I mean, I think we still need a proper left wing now that we're back to a 4-3-3. That would be nice to have. But other than that, I think the only main thing is that right back right now.
Yeah, I think that we definitely need to deepen the defense a little bit, but we also need to get Suso some competition on the right side because he's only going to get better if he has someone who's on his tail to take his position. Competition will drive the team to get better. Well, inside the team competition. But like AJ said, I don't have any players that I specifically want. Just a deeper defense and maybe a left wing instead of a right wing instead of a left wing.
Yeah, I mean, AJ mentioned about bringing in a new fullback, a new right back, and not having any specific names. We got an interesting suggestion from Christian Espinoza, who asked us some good questions. To be fair, he says, "Do you guys know Luis Advincula?" Which, as you can tell by the fact I don't know how to pronounce his name, I don't know who he is. He's the right back for the Peru national team and their most consistent player. Would be super cheap, he reckons. Is this going to be another case of if we do decide to get rid of Conti and we go in for another right back, do you think that Elliot are going to be looking for players like that, players that perhaps aren't mainstream names but are going to be like hidden gems?
Yeah, I think that's kind of been their strategy since taking over,
Well, he's
barring the
29.
Higuain deal. Oh, he's 29, and I've never heard of him. And where does he play?
Rayo Vallecano in
Uh,
Spain, in La Liga.
I know who
Uh,
that is. I'm just saying that doesn't give me much joy or anything. I'm passing on this guy. I don't know anything about him, so maybe I'm wrong, but it just I don't know. I
says
think I know
he
a
can
lot of
also play as
players.
a winger.
Well, I mean, I would hope so. Most fullbacks tend to play a wing back at some point. They tend to get forward anyway. So
Mm. Well, it says also that this is according to his Wikipedia page. They recorded a top speed of 36.15 kilometers per hour in a game in Mexico. That
Is
sounds
that
pretty
with the
quick.
ball or just running down the field?
I think that's just sprint speed. Whether probably running down the field. Yeah, that sounds pretty quick. Do I think we need a pace merchant at right back? Probably not. If the way that Pioli wants the team to look, from an attacking shape point of view, is to have a back three that then allows Hernandez to push up on the left side, then Calabria is going to be fine doing that job. If he can stop getting himself sent off, that'd be pretty good because he can tuck into that back three fine. I don't think he's been as good going forward recently. I mean, yeah, he's got a good delivery on him, and there will still be opportunities for him to come into the attacking play. But he'll be much better than Conte at doing that role. And honestly, I mean, it's an interesting one. We also got a question from Tommy Tank 23. He said if Rodriguez if Rodriguez, Conte, and Suso were sold in the winter, which players would you like to sign in their place with the budget that we have? I mean, that was what I was going to say based on January, what we've seen so far this season. I'd sell Rodriguez and Conte if we could, and try and raise, like, watching it, we get like 30 mil at a push. I mean, like 20 somewhere 20-30 mil for the pair of them. I mean, apparently there are German teams interested in Ricardo Rodriguez. Conte, we'll see if Parma comes sniffing around again, although they're actually above us at the moment. Raise a bit of money and get in a couple of fullbacks that Pioli thinks can play, his style of play. One of the right backs that we have been linked with quite a lot is Sergio Aurier. I think that's now going to be quite difficult because Pochettino's been using him a bit more, but he would be good. I think he'd be a really good signing, We've spoken about him on here before, about the experience that he has playing at an elite level, playing in the Champions League year in, year out. And he offers something a little bit different to what the current group of fullbacks do. In terms of a left back, really not sure. I haven't done too much research. None of we've been linked with many left backs, to be honest. But I'm sure there are some that are out there that we could go after. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting January for us because, there is going to be a little bit of budget there. You would have thought to keep the squad competitive, but you're going to have to keep an eye out for some sales as well. I think I don't see the rumours going away regarding Suso, so we'll see. But Joseph Calvo asks, should Milan purchase an experienced centre-back in the next transfer window to add some much needed experience to the back line? If so, who would you choose? Thiago Silva would be my choice. Edge, I'm throwing this to you because was it you who said sign Thiago Silva?
I think he did at the beginning of the season.
Me?
Yeah.
I think
Someone said it in the group chat earlier.
Oh, Ivan said that today.
Oh, did he? Yeah.
Yeah, and I rebutted.
And check, if you haven't already, then go onto the site and check out Ivan's 5 things from the game against Lecce. I thought they were all spot on. Yeah, Thiago Silva, I mean, I'll throw that to you first. Would you take him back? I think he's probably going to be let go in January.
Would I take him? Yes. And do I think he would come? Absolutely. I mean, he was at the Lecce game, so...
Was he?
Yeah, the ESPN camera panned to him as he was leaving at the end of the game, and I was like, hold on, that's Thiago Silva. I had to pause and make sure too, but it was definitely him. So that was cool because they played on Friday, so he probably had time off. But anyways, I don't know if he's the right guy. I mean, are we looking just to get experience to help the others develop? Or are we looking for someone to slot in? Not that he isn't better than Musacchio, but he's up there in age. That's no secret. I think we'd be getting him on a free he probably would take a wage cut for us, and I think he would help with that mentality in the locker room. Definitely help develop Romagnoli. But if Caldara's fit, I mean, he's been training. Is it fair to take that away from him if he is back to form or close to? I don't know. Um, but I wouldn't mind signing someone that brings that locker room mentality like Thiago would. I just think there needs to be some practicality to it as well. Some usability on the pitch, and I don't know if Thiago brings that anymore. I mean, he's not even starting for PSG any longer, is he?
No, he's not. No.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
I think they're looking more to the future. He is 35.
Right.
I bring him on for 2 years.
2? I'd give him 1 and offer him like a role in the not like management, but like on the coaching staff or something.
Coaching staff, yeah.
Or give him a 1-year contract with an option to extend.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense. Also, you need to consider that he earns a lot of money. I'm just trying to find out what his weekly wage is, but I think it was somewhere around about 12 million euros a year.
Yeah, something
which
crazy.
Would absolutely smash our current top earner, which is Donnarumma at
That would make
6
him,
million.
I believe, the second highest paid player in Serie A.
Yeah,
Ronaldo.
I don't think he would sign. I mean, you can't expect him to take a massive pay cut, especially at this stage of his career. He's always going to chase that last sort of paycheck. But at the same time, this is the time for sentimentality. And, he might think, I've earned my money. I'll come back and help out, a team that I love, a team that perhaps needs me. But
if he's done, I could see him wanting to be like, I want to retire at Milan. That's my swan song, and coming back for that. But if he says, no, I still got a few more years I want to play, he's not going to come to us. He's going to get money.
Yeah, this is where I'm a bit annoyed and could get really fired up with the way that our business went in the summer. We preached and preached and preached on this podcast. Or I did anyway. I can't remember what you guys said, but why the hell are we going for a Leo Duarte? We should be going for somebody who can instantly slot into this back four, be Romagnoli's partner, but someone who is experienced, somebody who has played a lot of minutes in Europe's top leagues, someone who has even, won trophies.
I was preaching it the day Diego Godin said he wasn't going to re-sign with Atletico. I said, why aren't we going for that? And then fucking Inter did it.
I mean, people obviously laughed at the Lovren rumours, but, he's not a bad player. People laughed at Roma for signing Chris Smalling, and since he's been their best defender. As Sam said, he's been really, really impressive. And you think that's the kind of player that we need? We need an absolute unit to stick next to Romagnoli, but someone who's going to be a bit of a leader as well alongside him. That you can never have a shortage of leaders in your back four. And we didn't go out and get one. Instead, we signed, a young defender from Brazil because it fit Elliott's recruitment strategy. And now it's all like, we need the experience. We need to bring in a top quality centre back to shore up the. And obviously, yeah, we do. That's right. That's what we do need. We do need more leadership. We do need more experience in the team. We need people who are going to just put a break on things when games perhaps aren't going our way, and also G the team up when they need it. But all of a sudden now it's like, let's sign a 35-year-old Thiago Silva, let's blow our wage budget out of the water, and at the same time jeopardise Mattia Caldara's return after he's been working so hard to come back into the starting lineup. I don't know. It just annoys me. It's like it was too short-sighted what we did. And no, sorry, it's the opposite. We were looking too far into the future by signing someone like a Duarte when really we could have used that money better on somebody with the experience, somebody who can make an instant impact, and it didn't happen. That's, rant over. I think that might just be it. I mean, we got actually a couple of interesting questions. Theo Diplas and Jadito88 both asked about us switching to a 3-man defence. It's quite an interesting one to think about because obviously, with what we mentioned earlier about how the team functioned against Lecce. Jadito said about playing Duarte on the right of a back three, and Theo basically said the same thing. Just
I have an
quickly.
idea for
Yeah,
that.
go on.
Instead of Duarte, why not Caldara if he's fit to return? We still need an additional center back on the bench. We play him at right back in our formation, 4-3-3, but we already know that in attack and defense in attack we have a three-man back line. So on the counter, we have a three-man back line already, and that's what Caldara was doing at Juventus anyway. So I think that makes more sense over Duarte if he is fit.
Well, his question said, or Caldara when fit.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
It did,
Well,
yeah.
then,
I missed that bit.
good idea.
That's my bad.
Way to go, Ollie.
Yeah, I do kind of like the idea. I do like the idea. I've always thought that our squad is actually kind of adaptable, and that we could potentially get away with playing a three at the back if the right manager came in who wanted to play that style. And maybe we have kind of got that in a way with Pioli, especially in possession. But also when Michael Giampaolo came in and wanted to play his way and it didn't work, I think maybe we're not adaptable. We just need to sort of play a system that suits our strengths here. And I'm not exactly sure that formally switching to a back three is necessarily the way to do that, by playing three centre halves. But I'm Calabria's going to come back from suspension. I'm happy to see how he functions there on the right. I think he'll have a much better time of it than Conte did against Lecce. So let's give it a little bit of time first before thinking about properly switching. But yeah, it's an interesting thought. And it'll be intriguing to monitor over the next few weeks how we keep setting the team up. But yeah, I think that's everything. That's all the questions we got, and that wraps up a pretty exciting episode, the first proper one under the Pioli era. Thank you very much for joining me, boys. I've been your host, Ollie Fisher. You can find me on Twitter at Ollie Fisher or at Kilpin Chronicle for some more explicit Milan-based rants and actually some decent memes. I've been pretty happy with the content I've been putting out on there recently. Not to blow my own trumpet or anything, but yeah, I've been joined as per usual by Anthony Torgrud.
Yeah, you're blowing your own trumpet, but it's out of tune because your memes aren't that good. So follow him anyways, but just laugh at him. Anyways, follow me on Twitter at Torgud45. Then we got Madison.
Don't be too excited there, AJ.
Yeah, then we got Madison.
Yeah, and we have this guy over here who just kind of hangs around. You guys can go ahead and follow me on Twitter at Madison_DT.
I was just trying to not talk trash to you since I just went in on Ollie, but whatever.
Yeah, I'm deeply offended, mate.
You should.
Yeah. Thank you very much for joining us, everyone, and we'll catch you in a week's time.
Abate la rimette dentro, esce Radu, porta vuota. Gol! Gol! Abbiamo battuto il gatto nero! Li abbiamo battuti tutti, Alessio! Grande Alessio! È bella la vita! Lava quella zolla, Alessio! Lava quella zolla, Alessio!